I am Park Youngja, born on May 17, 1945. Back then, I was 4 years old. I was 4, but I don't remember what my father looked like. My father didn't know what was happening. My father's nephew was serving as the village head at the time. When he was told to bring over some young men, he took 4 people with him. Early in the morning or at dawn, they were executed by gunfire at Yongge Mountain. My uncles went to retrieve the bodies, wrapping them in straw mat. They carried my father's body on their back and buried him along the way. In addition, my eldest uncle's house was set fire. That happened when I was 4, you know. Without my father, my mother couldn't live on her own, just raising me. So she took me to live in a small room at my maternal grandparents' house. She left our house with everything behind and took me to live in a small room at my maternal grandparents' house. My mother had become a young widow at the tender age of 24 or 5. So it seems that my maternal family arranged for her to remarry. Since I was living with my mother, I naturally followed her when she remarried. But it was hard for me to live there. So my eldest uncle took me back to his house, where I grew up. I can't put into words the hardships and sorrow I experienced while growing up there. While my friends went to school, I spent winters gathering firewood. And when spring came, I carried a basket and picked greens in the fields. Back then we raised cattle at home. I would carry a straw sack and haul grass for them. I had no time to play with my friends because I was always busy. The biggest regret of my life is not being able to read and write. I couldn't get any education. That's what weighs on me the most. I lived like that in my eldest uncles. I didn't know why my father was taken away. Now, through these activities, I've come to know the facts. In the past, I didn't even think about such things. I sometimes asked my mom about what had happened. I got no answers or explanations. There isn't even a single photo of my father, and I've never heard anything about him either. It's only by doing things like this and hearing stories that I came to know about the Yosun incident. Back then, there were nothing like these activities. All I ever heard of was the word communists. That's just how life was. Even then, I knew I was a victim of this Yosun incident. Since I was a child, I have known that my father passed away like that. I've heard and known since I was a child that my father was a victim, taken to the mountains without knowing why, and that this happened to him. Back then, however, it wasn't like now, when the Yosun incident is reported on TV and talked about openly. There was no explanation, nothing at all. They just told the people at home to come out, and that was it. The day they left was the last time we saw them. What reason could there possibly have been? One day, people planted trees at Joryongje. It seems my father worked there for a few days. It was suggested staying overnight at his in-laws' house. My father must have wanted to return home since both my mother and I were waiting for him. If he hadn't been coming back home that evening, my father might not have passed away, but he came home, and he got killed without knowing anything. That's what the grandmother said. There was no connection or involvement in anything at all. People who knew my father said that he was gentle and kind. That's what I often heard from others, what I wish for. Him is at such a young age, in the prime of his life. He should have been able to live and experience this wonderful world. My greatest wish is that his honor would be restored and his sorrow resolved. Only then can my father rest in peace. That sorrow needs to be resolved. Now, it's still deeply ingrained, that lingering sorrow. As I get closer to my own time, I start thinking this way, no matter what. This sorrow must be resolved while I'm still alive. That's why, whenever I go to meetings, I try to participate with all my might. I want to resolve this lingering sorrow. I hope to live long enough I keep thinking that I must see this sorrow resolved while I'm alive. That's what I have on my mind, just this thought.